Hey, hi, good afternoon, everyone. This is Sumedh here. Again, just following up on the previous week's webinar we had on interviews for technical writers with TWT, the Technical Writers Tribe. And I promised that I would get back with some of the questions that either one did not get addressed on the webinar or questions I received afterwards. So here's my take on some of the questions I received, about 7 or 8 of them. So the first question is, if you can't provide work samples due to technical constraints, how do you deal with this situation? So this is probably going to be the case in a lot of our cases, basically, where because of NDAs or because of contractual obligations, we are not able to provide any of your current work samples, especially the one you're working on right now. So be honest. The company that is potentially looking at you at hiring you appreciates the fact that if you can't show them the samples then of your current work, then you will have the same kind of ethics when you join them. And it's perfectly all right to say that I can't show you anything, but it's not enough to just be, honest and upfront about not being able to share. The new company potential project that you're trying would definitely want to see what you're capable of and what your skills are. So always think of an alternative. Create your own samples, maybe download a freeware or an open kind of a shareware software. Create a manual, create some kind of installation guide, create an online help to showcase your online help skills, or maybe you can even convert your own resume into an online help using RoboHelp or Madcap Flare, if that's the tool the company is looking at. Create an e-portfolio. I think I had shown you a sample of what I had done for my e-portfolio. Create a couple of Visio diagrams, because that's a pretty commonly asked tool nowadays. You can download Captivate and create some videos, lots and lots of animation related software and online tools. Create an animation, something to show that you're good in writing and writing related work like instructional design, creating scripts, whatever. You don't be limited to just saying I can't show you something because of obligations or NDAs. Create something that you can show the company what you can do. And especially people who write blogs or who create YouTube videos, those are also very good options to have ready to show, right? Great. Second question, tell me about a time you failed in something at work. What do you do when the client was unhappy with what you delivered? How do you answer this? I think we have addressed this one during the webinar, but it's an important one. Let me try and take a different perspective than we might have taken during the webinar. Um, so you have to try and understand what is the interviewer really asking you here. What do they really want to know? What do they need from you? It's not really how or why you screwed up or how you screwed up, but um, how you came out of it, right? How did you handle the situation? Uh, what innovative ways or what teamwork or what kind of an action you took to resolve that issue that you had got yourself into. This is a place where you don't want to be playing the blame game. Well, it wasn't my fault. The PM should have looked at it. The product manager didn't define it. The developers were late in giving me feedback. No, it's really not working in your favor when you play the blame game during interviews. Take responsibility instead of your own actions. Um, yeah, I did do some retrospective or I did some introspection. I thought about this and I could have followed up better. I could have followed up earlier. I could have asked slightly different kind of questions to get the kind of, answers that I needed to complete my work. Um, so take the blame or take the responsibility of things you think you screwed up on, and then come back and say, this is how I would do things differently in a similar situation, if faced again, to ensure success. So how would you not repeat whatever that you did back then, and what will you do differently? So they want to understand what your thought process is when you get into a difficult situation or a situation that is out of your control, but how do you handle it, right? So that's the ultimate reason for asking this kind of a question. This is also a great time to be bringing in your star story. And I think we have discussed the star story in a lot of detail the other day, but still, let me come back to that. And here it is. So what's a star story, right? Star is basically the situation. Task is the T. A is the action. So STA and R is your result, right? So this is where you can say, well, this is the kind of problem I encountered in your job, and how did you solve it? You can say something like, there were a number of customer escalations due to quality issues. That's your situation. Your task was to reduce the number of escalations. That's your task. Actions is, you somehow you analyze what the issues were that were leading to the escalations, and I worked with a team. Um, and what is the action you took to remediate that problem you were having? And finally, what was the result? Well, it resulted in XYZ percentage of increase or decrease in whatever that was happening, right? So this is something that you can be looking at, right? So hopefully that answers your question about the star story. I know people had asked me about that as well. Um, Third question I got is, what was the biggest professional challenge you faced till now, and how did you overcome it, right? This is another classic example of a star story. And just tell them the situation, like maybe the person, the point of contact or the product manager had to travel on a business trip at the last minute, and we had to work remotely to get all the information. And I stayed up late into the evenings, my time, so I could catch up with him during the US time or the European time, to make sure that I was getting all the feedback and all the comments that I did need from him or her while that person was still traveling. Um, Secondly, you can also say that this shows that I am a responsible team player, and I go over and above um, what is asked of me, and I take the responsibility of the quality as well as the timeliness of the work that I deliver. Okay, so that is how I would describe biggest professional challenge that you face, something to that effect, right? Definitely work on a couple of star stories, at least three, four star stories you should have. For example, how do you deal with difficult people? How do you handle challenging situations or projects? Um, what do you do when you're supposed to be delivering content, but you don't know the domain? You're new to the technology, you're new to the environment. Have you faced these kind of situations before? Even if you haven't, visualize from your experience what kind of issues you would have in these situations and come up with a star story. Be prepared with a couple of them during an interview, before an interview, right? Fourth question I got is, what is technical writing for you? How do you look at technical writing, and what it means to you? So here, I think the important part is not to, you know, spit out the dictionary definition of what a technical writing meaning term means, but tell them frankly what you yourself feel about it, having been in this industry for whatever number of years. You can say, something like it highlights the importance of the activity and the value it brings to an organization. So highlight the fact that it is an important aspect of any organization's work. It's just as important as software development, content, and testing, project management, product management. Technical writing is right at par with all those feature, all those functions within an organization. Also, this is where you can squeeze in the value add, the value addition that a technical writer brings to the organization. It's not just, I will talk to the engineers and talk to the technical folks and write down what I understand. No, it's also the fact that, technical writers can also be your very first testers. Yes, apart from the testing team generally looks at your test plans, test cases, use cases, they carry out your test cases, right? And they report it as bugs. But we technical writers can look at it from a user perspective. Technical writers are often called the user's advocates. So you can look at it and you can come up with questions that are going to be uh, a user experience issue. Or you can also say, hey, we did it like this in that feature. Why are we doing it like this? Why is the UI a bit different in this feature? Um, you know and also you are also working as the final user. So I typically like to play around with any software that I'm going to be documenting. I don't like to have anyone give me a demo or a walkthrough of the system, because I often miss the kinds of questions that I would have otherwise when I'm playing around with the software. And the questions that I have, more often than not, it's going to be the same questions that my user is going to have. And those questions must be addressed in some kind of a document, whether it's the user guide or the installation guide or whatever it is that I'm doing with that software. Um, so squeeze in that value addition also, although that is not really the primary question. The primary question is, what do you think is technical writing for you? But I think part and parcel of what is the technical writing to me is also the value add I can bring to the organization as a technical writer. Okay. Do you think the current and the most common technical writing techniques, interviewing techniques and procedures are really effective at picking the right candidate, or judging them on the most relevant skills? That's question number 5. So today, I do a lot of interviews. I also give a lot of interviews, mainly to keep myself fit in the interviewing this thing. And I go for interviews even though I don't think I'm a good fit for that role, mainly because I want to see what will help me be a fit for a certain role. What am I lacking? What are my gaps? That is a kind of a gap analysis I'm doing on my skills all the time. And maybe when I have time, maybe when I have the bandwidth, I have a list of items that I need to catch up on. Maybe it's academically or experience wise or some tools. Whenever I have time, I have a running list of things I need to catch up on, and I go back to that. But today, the most common technique for interviewing are obviously the interviewing and the written tests, right? As we spoke on the webinar, interviews are of two types. One is the technical interviews where you actually are asked technical questions, and then it's the behavioral interviews, right? Behavioral questions where you ask about situational and behavioral based questions. How will you behave if you were in a situation like this? What would you do? How would you think? Would you prioritize A or would you prioritize B? Those kind of are behavioral questions. So my answer to this question, whether today's technical writing interviews are really the right kind of a fit to get the right candidate, for me, if done correctly, yes, they are. Because you can't really do much more than do an interview and take a written test, right? But this needs more skills. The skills for finding the right candidate is more, the onus is more on the interviewer than the candidate. The candidate can do the best job in answering the questions, but if the questions that are asked are not probing in such a way that you can't really find out if this person is a good fit for my organization, then me as an interviewer, I'm not doing a good job, right? So the hiring organization needs to come up with a way to hire good talent and the best fit for their culture, uh, be it behavioral skills, be it communication skills, be it technical skills, domain skills, whatever it is. So I mean, I have had, I've been to interviews where, there are like three, four, five, six interview rounds happening over a period of couple of months. I've also been to interviews where it was a 15, 20-minute interview and bang, it's done. So it's completely up to the hiring manager, up to the panel that is doing the interviews to decide whether this person is a good fit or not. But again, never go into an interview thinking it's a one-way kind of an interview process. You are interviewing the people, the interviewer, the hiring manager, the organization, just as much as they are interviewing you, right? You also want to know if this organization is a good fit for me, even though it's a 6-month contract. 6-month contract very, very, very frequently run into several months, several years, longer, beyond 6 months. So it's not like, yeah, I'll just take it anyway. 6 months का है. After 6 months, we'll see. No, if you want to stick there for a longer time, if there's a potential, then you want to find out if it's a good fit, right? Okay. Sixth question, how do you compensate for the lack of technical skills and experience, mostly tools related, in an interview? Tools can be learned, but still sometimes they become the deal breakers. So I think the question is, you go into an interview, you don't have the knowledge of that tool, and tool is not that important, but sometimes just because you don't know the tool, you're not selected. I think that's the question. So, we spoke a lot about preparing yourself for an interview, and this part goes back to the preparation that you do. You know, if the tool is extremely crucial to that project or to that role that they're looking at you for, that tool would 99% of the time be mentioned in the job description, right? If it says an online help authoring tool such as RoboHelp FrameMaker, Madcap Flare, we talked about it, right? Try to see if you can find someone in that company that can help you out and say, hey, what is your authoring environment like? This is a very, very good question to ask the recruiter or even your HR person who is setting up this call for you, right? So you can say, are any authoring environments, online help authoring tools good, or do you need a specific tool that you want expertise on for this role, right? If you find out, great. Watch YouTube videos for that particular tool. Download evaluations. I have downloaded Captivate like a 15 million times and played around with it, because by the time I know the tool, and the next time I'm asked something about it in an interview, I might have gotten rusty or I might have gotten stale on it. So I download it again, newest release, play around with it a bit more, and that way you can get used to it. Watch, as I said, watch YouTube videos, download the evals, get familiar with the tools. Um, it's fine to say that you have never used a tool in a corporate setting, in a corporate environment, but it's good to say that you have dabbled with the tool, Renard, with the evaluation. Especially you can say, I've never used the tool, but as soon as I saw this tool in the job description, I downloaded it specifically to prepare for this interview. That will give the interviewer the importance, and they will also think that, yeah, you tried to come in prepared for this job interview. Secondly, also mention any other similar tools you may have used. For example, you've used XMetal but not Arbortext or Oxygen. You've used Madcap Flare but not RoboHelp or FrameMaker. More or less, they're similar in features and functionality. Yes, the user interface is going to be different. If you know RoboHelp, catching up with FrameMaker, you might have a little bit of a longer or a higher, steeper learning curve. But it's like if you've driven one kind of a car, you can most probably drive, a Jeep or a convertible. It's just the feature that's different. The conceptually, the principles are the same. There's an accelerator, there's a brake, maybe there's um, a gear or an auto, but pretty much is the same. Um, Now, it is equally important to show what you will do on the job. When you're faced with a new or a previously unused tool or technology. So it's not enough to say, I'm sorry, I've never used Madcap Flare, right? what matters here is not that you have never used, but how will you face a situation where you are facing that situation for the first time in this company or in this role. That is the thought process that the interviewer is looking for. It's not a yes or no answer. Like, have you used Madcap Flare? No, I haven't. Period. That's not enough, right? No, I haven't used Madcap Flare, but I have used XYZ, and conceptually they're same. I've downloaded Madcap Flare at home. I've created single sourcing projects and I've tried different ways. And yes, I did have this small issue with how um, we use conditional text or conditional build tags in RoboHelp. It didn't quite work the same way in Madcap Flare, but those are nuances that I'm sure I'll be able to pick up. Right? So that's how you answer a question that is tools related, and not lie that you know the tool, because that they can find out within 2 minutes by asking you a technical question. But at the same time, sound confident enough to be able to take on a new tool, learn it, and at the same time deliver whatever it is that they need to deliver on time. Okay. I think last question I have, as a content writer transitioning into a tech writing role, how to answer if they ask a specific technical question? Should I be honest and say that I'm not aware of it? Um, well, I'm not really sure I understood the question properly. I would need more clarity on this question. When you say, if they ask me a specific technical question, is the technical question based on SDLC and DDLC and how they're related to each other? Is it on tools or technology related? Is it more on SEO, because content writing looks at SEO a lot more than technical writing does? Not really sure. So whoever asks this question, feel free to write to me, or post it on the TWT WhatsApp or Telegram group, and we can have a chat on that. But uh, to take to I'll just try to address this as best as I can. It's fine to own up and say that you have not used um, that tool or that technology or whatever domain it is that they're asking you about in a technical writing context. You know, your job is not to say I don't know and keep shut, like we spoke in the earlier question. Your job is to show the organization your can-do attitude. I've never faced this situation, but then, there were so many instances where I had never faced a situation similar to that one before, and I was able to handle it very well, or I addressed it with flying colors, delivered on time, although it was the first time I was doing that kind of a work. So what the interview is asking you here um, is, are you a problem creator or are you a problem solver? If you're a problem creator, you'll just say, I'm sorry, I'm being honest, I've never used this before, and that's it. I will need help. Whereas, sorry, if you're a problem solver, you'll tell them how you would go about what is your thought process in solving that problem. I've never used this kind of a technology before, but I hadn't used that technology earlier on before either, but now I know how to use it because I did so and so to learn it, right? Most organizations today, when they hire as a content writer or a technical writer, they're not just looking for a technical writer or a content writer. The organization is looking for a self-driven person who needs the least amount of hand-holding and direction, right? And your job is to impress upon them that you are that person. You can go above and beyond just being a good technical writer or an excellent content writer. You can also go above and beyond to just writing, but you can also solve other problems, right? So that is really what the interviewers are looking for in you. So always keep those things in mind, the soft skills, the hard skills, transferable skills. A lot of transferable skills if you're moving from instructional designing and or content writing into technical writing and vice versa. Make a list of all the transferable skills for instructional designers. You know, we do personas in instructional design, and we do audience analysis in technical writing, right? Um, So match those two and say, hey, I know how to do personas, I know how to do storyboarding, I know how to A, B, C, D, E, which is something which is quite a similar concept in technical writing as well, right? So always keep those things in mind rather than saying, never used this before, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm just going to be honest and say I've never used it, right? Um, okay, I hope these have helped in clarifying some of the questions you had. Again, I'm always, I'm there on all the TWT channels, so WhatsApp and Telegram. Feel free, and it was fun addressing those questions again. Thank you so much. Bye.